Remember how in the Dorothy video I said I don't like robots? In fact, I think I said I hate robots? Well...
Okay.
Burning Vendetta aside, Chapter 11 just has a lot of things that Minos can't deal with. Dare I say it, Chapter 11 has a lot of things that counters Minos specifically. For the record, at the time I'm recording this, I've cleared every stage except 20, with the hardest stage other than 20 being stage 15. 20 is pretty obvious, it's the robots that really don't like Minos. And 15 throws way too much stuff at me. Like, every chapter kinda has a theme. Like what, 5 is drones, 6 is ice, 7 is the Patriot buff things. But what's 11? Spam. A lot of spam. Necrosis spam, enemies spam, artillery spam, there's just spam. I hate it. Because of this though, a lot of stages end up being relatively easy because it's just clear the spam. But, you know, there's some fun exceptions here and there. Some ground rules. First and foremost, I did this on normal difficulty because there is no way I'm clearing this on adverse. I can't even clear stage 2. And secondly, Allerdale, despite not being a Minos operator, is not an operator, so it's fair game. I guess to kick things off, I should start about the biggest thing in this event, the AoE blood pools things, whatever they are. Corrosion damage? I don't know. Yeah, those things are annoying. Like, it's fine because my team does have a medic, but if Vulcan's ever close to them, then that kind of sucks. This is one of the things that gets spammed a lot in these levels, but Vulcan only has one skill proc every 50 seconds, so it can get really dangerous sometimes. Obviously, this matters more on later stages, but you can really see it happen on 11.6, the spam stage, because of course it's the spam stage. Like, Vulcan doesn't have to worry too much because the actual corruption damage is not too big, even if there's like, what, 50 of them? But when she has to deal with enemies other than basic grunts, then yeah, it actually is a problem. Moving on, tanks. That's it. They're tanks. You know, I always thought that these are just the chapter 10 mechanic on wheels, but maybe that's just a me thing. Anyways, yeah, these guys are probably the most important enemy to deal with just because they can very easily wipe the squad if I'm not careful. Like, yeah, 1 barrage is not a problem, but 2 is where everyone dies, so someone needs to make sure that no one gets down to low health. In general, there's 2 ways to deal with these guys. 1 is to sacrifice someone, namely Conviction, and 2 is to bunch everyone up and have either Sidroka or Vulcan tank the whole barrage. Like, yeah, other people get hit here and there, but how the tanks work is they'll aim for whoever has the highest max HP first, which is going to be Vulcan in most cases, and then they'll hit whoever has the highest percentage of HP. So as long as Sidroka or Vulcan are constantly being healed by their own abilities, they should take most of the shots. Stage 15 is the big one, but I just want to mention how scuffed stage 12 was for me. Like, it wasn't actually particularly hard, I was just worried about the 3 tanks, but yeah, it worked out somehow. Following this stage, however, Minos encounters one enemy that's just a little too hard to deal with. It's just on this stage though. Stage 20 throws all the wrong enemies at all the wrong times. First and foremost, the 4 tanks that appear at the beginning are just too hard to deal with. Like, yeah, individually they're fine, but they're spaced in a way where, combined with everything else that comes on the level, they become a real nuisance. Arado can take out the first one, but like that's the only one that I can consistently take down because they have incredible range, and putting Arado on any other tile just means that she's gonna get barraged on. I've considered Palace Module Y, but she runs into the same issue. She just can't self-sustain hard enough even with Allerdale. And even if she could, well, she's not tanking 1 tank, she's tanking 4 tanks. Yeah, no one's living through that, not even Vulcan. After that, there's the Kamikaze wheels, which, yeah, if I could actually put Conviction somewhere safe to tank all of them, it'd be fine. But with those tanks, no, it's not happening. I need to deal with them individually. Like, I wish Palace could just tank them or Arado can just shoot them down. But Palace isn't tanky enough, and if Arado's shooting them, then she's not shooting the tanks. And even when she could shoot them or the tanks, she does prefer the tanks. So, yeah, that ain't happening. Next up, the boss, actually. I'm not even gonna talk about the boss because I haven't even begun thinking about how to deal with it. Like, I can barely handle the tanks and the wheels and the carts and the regular units. Just know that the boss is a pain. No one can solo it. It's not meant to be soloed. It's meant to be burst down by a team, and I have not even half a team. Maybe if it was just the boss, it'd be doable somehow, but the issue is the boss spawns with the last enemy, the anti-melee carts. And if you were paying attention, you might remember in like the 2 seconds I showed it, Minos has 70% melee units. And if you're wondering how the math checks out on that, Palace counts as both, so I'm just counting her as 10% instead of 20%. Yeah, 70% melee units. But it doesn't really matter because there's no way to set up Palace on a range tile or else she doesn't deal with the tanks. And because of that, these things hurt. Like, Arado can take out I think 1 at most with like proper setup and whatnot, but that still leaves 7 for the rest of the team will deal with, on top of any tanks that are still left over and on top of the boss. Yeah, this level is pretty much impossible because this combination of enemies just makes things like wild. I'm gonna try it again once Arado gets her module in a few updates, but for now, this is just left in the dust. With that, the hardest stage that I beat is 11:15, and yeah, that stage was crazy too. Trust me, you're gonna want to get ready for this one. First things first, Arado. Now you might be wondering why Arado first, and usually taking damage from the tree, and I say yes, of course she's taking damage from the tree, but you know what, she's gotta start dealing with things for skill cycles and taking out enemies in time. Don't worry about it. Next up, Palace. Palace is gonna heal Arado and deal with her own trees. She can actually handle it, she needs like 1 cycle for each tree. But you know, I need to put Conviction right after the tree does its attack, just so Conviction is not hit with Necrosis. And then if I'm timed it right, then the tree should just die, Palace should be able to handle the guy, and then Conviction will come up before the first enemy on the top lane comes. At some point, Conviction needs to land a crit on the tree, which means this is the first place where RNG can completely screw me over, but luckily I eventually got it. I'm gonna be honest, I don't even pay attention to Conviction, I just check later if whether or not Conviction land a crit or not. Sadroka goes to the top to deal with the waves because Arado is not gonna shoot at them. And for the longest time, I actually put Sadroka on the rightmost tile, but I learned that I need to put Sadroka on the 3rd tile just to deal with the barrages later. Don't worry about it, it'll come up later anyways. Now there's a bit of breathing room here. Put down Vulcan, that's obvious. If Conviction is dead before the tree, then Conviction did not land a crit, and it's time for a restart. Somewhere in that mess, Palace needs to use her skill again, which you wouldn't believe how easy it is to forget that. Okay, break time's over. If you did not use Vulcan's skill around where Conviction died, well, too late, time to restart. Vulcan needs to deal with the guy that comes out of the tree and to tank the barrage, because if you remember what I said earlier, Vulcan will tank most of it if Vulcan's using skill. Anyways, things are gonna go fine. Make sure to watch the enemies that just swallow your units. As soon as the one in the back passes the one that's just standing there, Palace needs to use skill. It's gonna be like a little wonky, but for the most part, Palace should be able to deal with this before it takes down Palace. Arado needs to use skill as well because of course, but then you gotta make sure to use Allerdale because that's when the tank is moved enough to start the barrage. It's gonna be scary, but it's gonna be fine. If you did this right, then the second eater guy should just die too. Now the reason Sadroka is on the 3rd tile and not the 1st tile is because the tank at the top is gonna eventually just go do a barrage as well. If Sadroka is super forward, she will tank the tank instead of tanking the regular guys, and the regular guys will get through. This is also the part where I need to use Sadroka's skill. I just do it when the 2 guys line up, just use it, it doesn't really matter. Conviction has enough HP to just kind of tank it out, and it doesn't really matter that Conviction is low anyways, because Conviction is gonna be eaten. Think fast though, because the middle tank has showed up, and it's also gonna do a barrage. You wanna use Allerdale and then Vulcan's skill. Just like the first time, Vulcan has to do 2 things. One is help tank the barrage, because everyone's already at low health, so Vulcan has to be dealing with it mostly. Second is Vulcan's gonna deal with the eater guy that ate Conviction, because you're definitely gonna need Conviction for the last part. And after all that, finally there's room to breathe. Sadroka should be able to take out the tank, and Vulcan should be able to take out the eater guy. Now, at this point, all there is to do is to make sure that everyone is off cooldown and ready to deal with the big tree guys, because if you read the tutorial, you might know that these guys are really strong if everyone else has died before they come up. So yeah, they're gonna run over the team if you're not careful. There's one more bit of RNG here, and that's just, with the way I set it up, Vulcan has to tank a few hits while dealing damage, and if Vulcan doesn't dodge one of the hits, Vulcan will probably die. Like, if this is done differently, then yeah, maybe there's a way that's not a problem, but eh. And that's chapter 11 done, basically. I mean, 20 is still out there, but you know, we'll get back to that. With Il Siracusano on the horizon, it's gonna get really fun. I'm pretty sure everyone's just waiting for this one, but you know, we'll get there.